Rain was beating the zinc roof like angry fists when Musa's voice thundered through the small mud house. "Amina, pack your things and leave my side before I curse you." And his hand was already shaking from rage. She stood there, belly round like ripe pawpaw, tears mixing with the rain dripping from her hair, but still holding her small bag tight as if it could shield her from the cold. Outside, the village gossipers were already peeping from their huts, whispering in that sly way, because everybody knew Musa's pride was big, and his daughter's shame was now the hottest gist of the year. Amina walks out into the muddy path, her slippers sinking deep with each step, and the laughter of her father's second wife, Lindiwe, followed her like a curse in the night. She didn't look back, but her mind was boiling with anger and heartbreak, remembering how just 2 months ago she was the apple of her father's eye until Lindiwe whispered poison into his ears. Somewhere far behind, Musa was pacing the small yard, his chest heavy, thinking he was doing the right thing, not knowing that the man who got Amina pregnant was much closer to home than he could ever imagine.
3 years later, the same muddy path echoed with the sound of a car engine, not the usual taxi, but a black Mercedes with tinted windows that made even the chickens run from the road. The door opened, and Amina stepped out wearing a red dress that clung to her like it was sewn on her body, her skin glowing as if she had been living where the sun was gentle. But the real shock was the tall man that came out after her, his hand resting boldly on her waist, a face that made half the village women gasp and cover their mouths because it was someone they all knew and feared. It was Sifo, Musa's own younger brother, the one who left the village years ago saying he was going to Johannesburg to chase money, but instead returned now with gold chains on his neck and eyes that didn't fear anybody. The crowd shifted, pretending to mind their own business, but everybody was stealing glances, wondering if this was the man who planted the seed in Amina's belly before she vanished. Musa stood frozen at the doorway, his mouth half open, feeling his knees weaken as memories flashed. Sifo visiting late nights, Lindiwe's strange smiles, and Amina's sudden change in mood back then.
"Long time, brother," Sipo said, his voice smooth like oil, but the way his eyes locked on Musa felt like a challenge. Amina's smile was sharp but calm, and she didn't even greet Lindiwe, who was hiding in the corner like a rat caught stealing maize. The tension was so thick the air felt hot, and even the rain clouds above seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for the first word that would break the silence into pieces. Then Amina dropped the first bomb, her voice steady but loud enough for the whole yard to hear. "Papa, meet your grandson, Musa Jr." Gasps flew from every corner, and someone in the crowd even dropped their calabash of water, because the boy stepping out of the car looked just like a young version of Musa, but his eyes carried Sifo's dangerous spark. Lindiwe's face turned pale, Musa's heart pounded, and in that moment he realized the truth he had been running from for 3 long years was now standing right in front of him. Musa's voice cracked as he pointed a trembling finger at Sipo. "You mean to tell me this boy is yours?" But before Sipo could answer, Amina stepped forward, eyes blazing like dry grass on fire. "No, Papa," she said slowly, "this boy is mine, and his father is someone you trusted more than your own blood." The crowd leaned in, holding their breath, because now the gist had left ordinary scandal and entered dangerous territory. From behind the kitchen door, Lindiwe stepped out, trying to smile, but her lips were shaking, and she clutched her wrapper like it could cover the shame already pouring from her eyes. Amina's gaze cut through her like a knife, and in that moment, everyone understood. The betrayal wasn't just about a pregnancy, it was about a family tearing itself apart from the inside. Sifo just leaned on the car, smirking, enjoying the storm, while the boy, Musa Jr., stood silently, holding his mother's hand, looking at his grandfather with eyes too old for his age.
Auntie Lindiwe, Amina's voice was sweet but sharp. Tell Papa who you were sneaking into my room to warn me about that night, or should I say it myself? The air went so quiet you could hear a goat sneeze somewhere in the distance, and Lindiwe's hands began to tremble. Musa's eyes moved from his wife to his daughter, then to his brother, and a cold, heavy truth began to rise in his chest, the kind of truth that changes everything forever. Lindiwe's lips quivered as she tried to speak, but Amina didn't wait for her. Papa, the man who got me pregnant was not Sipo. It was your own friend, the one you let sleep in our house when Mama died. A murmur swept through the crowd like wind through dry maize leaves, and Musa's heart slammed against his chest because he knew exactly who she meant. It was Jacob, the village businessman, with a smile too wide and eyes that saw too much. The same man who lent Musa money when the farm nearly failed. Amina's voice trembled now, not from fear, but from the weight of 3 years of pain, as she told how Jacob promised to marry her, but vanished the day her belly started showing. The crowd hissed in disgust, but Musa's shame was heavier because he had defended Jacob back then and thrown his own daughter into the rain. But the real shock was still coming. Amina turned to the car and another child stepped out, a little girl with Lindiwe's exact face. The crowd erupted in noise because suddenly the whispers made sense. Jacob had not only betrayed Musa through his daughter, but also through his wife. Musa staggered back, clutching his chest, as Lindiwe's eyes filled with tears that spoke every word she didn't have the courage to say. Musa's roar shook the yard as he lunged toward Lindiwe, but Sipo stepped in, holding him back with one arm like he was pushing a stubborn goat. "Leave her," Sipo said coldly. "She's not worth the dust on your shoes." The villagers pressed closer, their eyes wide with the kind of hunger that only comes when drama tastes better than dinner. Lindiwe finally broke down, falling to her knees in the mud, her wrapper slipping off one shoulder as she cried, "Musa, I didn't mean for it to happen. Jacob said he would take care of us." Amina laughed, not a happy laugh, but the kind that makes your skin crawl, and pointed at the little girl clutching Lindiwe's leg. "That's your care? Destroying your husband and stealing another woman's life at the same time?" Just then, an old blue taxi pulled up, and the door swung open to reveal Jacob himself, wearing a fine suit and carrying a leather bag, as if he had no idea the whole village wanted to skin him alive. The moment his eyes landed on Amina and the children, his steps faltered, and the crowd's hisses grew louder. Musa's fists tightened, the muscles in his jaw jumping, because now the man at the center of every betrayal was standing right in his yard. Jacob raised his hands like a man who just met a lion on a narrow path, his voice calm but shaking underneath. "My people, please, it's not what you think," he started, but the murmurs from the crowd swallowed his words. Amina stepped forward, her red dress swaying in the wind and her eyes locked on him like she was aiming an arrow. "Then tell Papa why you disappeared after promising to marry me." Jacob's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish struggling for air. But before he could speak, Lindiwe shouted, "Because he was mine before he was yours." The crowd gasped again, women covering their mouths while the men muttered under their breath, because such a confession was worse than a slap in public. Musa's hands began to shake so badly that Sipo had to hold his shoulder before he collapsed right there in the mud. But Jacob wasn't finished. He stepped closer, his eyes cold now, and said, "Musa, you think I betrayed you, but you don't know the half of it. Ask your daughter who paid for that Mercedes she's driving." The village went silent again, every ear stretching for the next word. Amina's face froze, her lips trembling, because the truth Jacob was about to spill could burn everything she had built in those 3 years away.
Jacob's voice cut through the heavy air. That Mercedes was bought by Sipo, and he wasn't just helping out of kindness. Gasps rippled again, and all eyes swung to Sipo, whose calm smirk faded for the first time. Amina's eyes darted between them, her hands tightening on her son's shoulders, as if she could shield him from the shame now hanging in the air.
Lindiwe stepped in with a bitter laugh. "Don't you all see? This girl ran from one betrayal straight into the arms of another, your own brother, Musa." The yard erupted in noise, neighbors shouting, some defending Amina, others calling her shameless. Sipo raised his chin, eyes blazing, and said, "Yes, I took her in, and I'll say it here. I love her, and I'm ready to marry her." The village square had never been this loud. People spilled out from every corner to see how Musa would answer his brother's open declaration. His chest rose and fell like a man fighting for air, eyes darting from Amina to Sipo to the children. Then, with a voice hoarse from anger, he shouted, "Over my dead body will my daughter marry the man I call my brother." Sipo stepped closer until he was face to face with Musa, their breaths almost touching. "Then maybe you should remember you stopped being her father the night you threw her out." The words hit Musa like a spear, and for a moment he saw himself 3 years ago shouting into the rain while his only child walked away. Around them, the crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads, knowing this was a wound too deep to heal in one day. Then Amina raised her hand, silencing them all, her voice steady now. "I didn't come back to beg for love or approval. I came to show you what you lost." She turned to her son and daughter, placing their hands together. "These are the only family I need." Gasps turned to stunned silence as she walked toward the Mercedes, Saifo following without hesitation, leaving Musa standing in the middle of the yard with nothing but the weight of his own choices. 3 years after being kicked out, Amina drove away from the same yard, but this time, the whispers that followed her weren't of shame, they were of fear and respect. The last thing Musa saw was his daughter's head held high, her children looking out the window, and Sifo's arm resting protectively over the seat. And as the dust from the tires settled over the village, everyone knew the truth. The girl he cast into the rain had returned not for revenge, but to prove she had built a life so powerful, even her father's pride couldn't destroy it. If you enjoy this kind of juicy village scandal that keeps you holding your breath, then you don't want to miss the next one. The next twist might just leave you shouting. Hit that subscribe button now. Turn on the notification bell and join the family so you're the first to get every fresh gist hot from the pot.